Number 1, M1917 light tank. In April 1917, when the United States entered World War I, it had no tanks of its own. Tank warfare was still a new concept, and American industry had not yet produced an armored fighting vehicle. To compensate, the U.S. relied on its allies, primarily France and Britain, which supplied tanks for training and combat use by the newly formed U.S. Tank Corps. To establish domestic production, France shared the design of the Renault FT with the United States. The Renault FT is widely regarded as the first modern tank because it introduced a layout that became standard worldwide. A fully rotating turret mounted on top, the engine placed in the rear, and the crew positioned toward the front. This configuration allowed for better battlefield awareness, improved balance, and more flexible firepower compared to earlier designs. The American version of the Renault FT was designated the M1917. While it closely followed the French design, it used American-made components, including a Buda HU four-cylinder engine, a different transmission, and American armament. The M1917 could be fitted with either a 37mm cannon or a .30 caliber machine gun. Unlike the French version, which featured a wooden idler wheel and a right-side exhaust, the M1917 used steel idler wheels and moved the exhaust to the left side. Production of the M1917 was delayed by industrial bottlenecks and the immense challenge of converting French metric blueprints to American imperial standards. As a result, the first M1917 tanks were completed only in late 1918. None reached the battlefield before the armistice on November 11, 1918, meaning the tank never saw combat during World War I. Only 10 vehicles actually reached France before the war ended, and they arrived 9 days after the ceasefire. Number 2, M4 Sherman. Tanks first became a central tool of American ground warfare during World War II, but this capability did not appear suddenly. Early U.S. tanks developed around the end of World War I were mechanically unreliable and often dangerous for their own crews due to poor ventilation and limited visibility. During the interwar period, American tank design focused on solving these problems. By the time World War II began, the U.S. Army had shifted towards standardized, mass-producible designs that emphasized reliability and strategic mobility. The first truly mass-produced and widely deployed American tank was the M4 Sherman, which became the backbone of U.S. armored forces. Entering service in 1942, the Sherman was a medium tank designed to balance firepower, protection, and mobility. It was initially armed with a 75mm gun, unique for its time because it featured an early gyro stabilizer, allowing the crew to fire more accurately while on the move. Its armor was sloped to increase effective thickness and deflect incoming rounds. The Sherman's most important advantage was industrial efficiency. The United States produced approximately 49,234 Shermans between 1942 and 1945. The tank was designed specifically to fit within the constraints of American shipping cranes and Liberty ships, ensuring it could be transported across the Atlantic in massive numbers. Parts were highly standardized and engines were famously reliable, allowing damaged vehicles to be quickly repaired and returned to the front. Number 3, M3 Stuart. The next most produced American tank family was the M3 Stuart, a light tank that entered service in 1941. Light tanks were designed primarily for reconnaissance, screening, and rapid maneuver rather than direct combat with enemy armor. The M3 Stuart was fast, mechanically reliable, and easy to maintain, making it suitable for early war conditions when the U.S. Army was still building its armored doctrine. It was armed with a 37mm gun, which was effective against lightly armored vehicles and infantry positions, but insufficient against heavier enemy tanks. Approximately 13,859 cubic meters Stuarts were produced. The tank had thin armor, which provided limited protection, but reduced weight and improved speed. Its four-man crew consisted of a commander, who also served as the loader, a gunner, a driver, and an assistant driver/bow gunner. In the early stages of World War II, particularly in North Africa and the Pacific, the M3 Stuart performed adequately in reconnaissance and infantry support roles. However, as the war progressed, the limitations of the M3 Stuart became clear. German medium and heavy tanks quickly outclassed it in firepower and armor, making it ineffective in direct engagements. As a result, the Stuart was gradually withdrawn from frontline armored combat in Europe and reassigned to scouting, command, and training roles. Following the M3, the U.S. Army introduced the M5 Stuart, an improved version that entered service in 1942. The M5 retained the same 37mm gun but featured a redesigned, raised rear hull to accommodate twin Cadillac 5.8 engines and a Hydra-Matic automatic transmission. These changes significantly improved reliability and made the tank much quieter and easier to drive. Number 4. M48 Patton. The next major shift in American tank production came after World War II with the development of the Patton tank family. One of the most produced tanks of this era was the M48 Patton, which entered service in 1952. The M48 was classified as a medium tank, but its design moved closer to the main battle tank concept, featuring a revolutionary hemispherical, bowl-shaped, cast turret and hull that greatly improved its ability to deflect incoming rounds. Approximately 12,000 M48 Pattons were produced. It was armed with a 90mm M41 gun and was the first U.S. tank to completely abandon the bow machine gunner, moving to a four-man crew: commander, gunner, loader, and driver. The M48 became the primary American workhorse during the Vietnam War, where its durability made it effective for mine clearing and infantry support, though its high silhouette and gasoline engine in early models were notable drawbacks. Building on the M48, the United States introduced the M60, which entered service in 1960. The M60 was the first American vehicle officially designated as a main battle tank. It was designed to replace both the M48 medium and the M103 heavy tanks, performing all armored roles with a single platform. Around 15,000 M60 series tanks were produced. Its most significant upgrade was the powerful 105mm M68 rifled gun, a licensed version of the British L7, which became the NATO standard for decades. Unlike the M48, the M60 utilized a diesel engine from the start, which increased operational range and reduced the risk of fire. Number 5. M1 Abrams. The next major development in American tank history was the introduction of the M1 Abrams, which entered service in 1980. Designed to counter massive Soviet armored formations in Europe, it represented a complete break from earlier design philosophies, emphasizing extreme speed, advanced composite protection, and high survivability. One of its defining features is Burlington, Chobham-type, composite armor. This uses layers of ceramics, steel, and plastics to defeat both high-explosive anti-tank, heat rounds, and kinetic energy darts. Later variants even incorporated depleted uranium mesh to make the armor nearly impenetrable to contemporary tank fire. The Abrams was initially armed with a 105mm gun, but was soon upgraded to the 120mm M256 smoothbore cannon. Combined with a state-of-the-art fire control system and thermal imaging, it allowed for fire-on-the-move capability, the ability to hit a moving target while traveling at high speeds over rough terrain. Unlike its predecessors, the Abrams is powered by the Honeywell AGT-1500 gas turbine engine. This engine is multi-fuel and provides a power-to-weight ratio that allows the tank to reach speeds over 40 miles per hour, earning it the nickname Whispering Death due to its relatively quiet operation compared to loud diesel engines. Number 6. M3. Lee and M3 Grant. Before the Sherman and Patton families dominated production, the U.S. Army fielded several transitional tanks. One of the most important was the M3 Lee and its British variant, the M3 Grant, which entered service in 1941. This was a stopgap design created because the U.S. lacked the industrial tooling to produce a large, fully rotating turret capable of holding a 75mm gun. A total of 6,258 M3 series tanks were produced. Their most distinctive feature was the dual gun layout, a 75mm gun mounted in a right-side hull sponson and a 37mm gun in a small turret on top. While this provided heavy firepower early in the war, the main gun had a limited traverse of only about 30 degrees, meaning the entire tank had to turn to aim at targets outside that narrow window. The M3 Lee carried a large 7-man crew, though the British Grant variant usually used 6. While it performed well in North Africa against early German Panzer IIIs, its tall silhouette, nearly 10 feet high, made it an easy target. As the fully turreted M4 Sherman arrived, the M3 was quickly phased out of frontline U.S. service, though it continued to serve in the Pacific and with Soviet and British forces. Alongside medium tanks, the U.S. developed the M24 Chaffee, which entered service in 1944. The Chaffee was designed to fix the shortcomings of the Stuart series by offering medium firepower on a light chassis. It was armed with a lightweight 75mm gun derived from aircraft weaponry, giving it a massive punch for its size. Number 7. M26 Pershing. As World War II drew to a close, the U.S. Army introduced heavier designs intended to counter increasingly powerful enemy tanks. The most significant of these was the M26 Pershing, which entered service in early 1945. Initially classified as a heavy tank to boost troop morale, it was later reclassified as a medium tank in the post-war era. Approximately 2,200 M26 Pershing tanks were produced during its initial run. It was armed with a 90mm M3 gun, providing the armor penetration needed to engage German Panther and Tiger tanks on equal terms, something the 75mm Sherman struggled to do. The Pershing utilized a torsion bar suspension, which offered a much more stable firing platform than the Sherman's older spring system. Though its impact on World War II was limited by its late arrival, it became a legend during the Korean War, where its 90mm gun easily overmatched the Soviet-made T-34/85. Following the Pershing, the U.S. Army fielded the M41 Walker Bulldog, a light tank that entered service in 1951. Named after General Walton Walker, the M41 was designed for rapid response and reconnaissance. It was armed with a high-velocity 76mm M32 gun, which used longer shells than previous 76mm guns to achieve much higher muzzle velocities. The United States produced 3,728 M41 Walker Bulldogs. Its design emphasized speed and improved optics, featuring a sophisticated rangefinder for its time. The tank utilized a 4-man crew, commander, gunner, loader, and driver, which allowed for better combat efficiency than the cramped 3-man turrets of earlier light tanks. While it lacked the heavy armor to survive direct hits from main battle tanks, its mobility made it a favorite in the Vietnam War, where it was used extensively by the South Vietnamese Army to counter North Vietnamese armor in dense terrain. Number 8. M46 Patton. As American tank design continued to diversify, several specialized variants were produced to meet specific battlefield needs. One of the most important was the M4A3 76 WHVSS Sherman, commonly known as the Easy 8. Entering service in 1944, it addressed the two biggest complaints of tanker crews: firepower and ride quality. The HVSS, horizontal volute spring suspension, allowed for wider tracks, which reduced ground pressure and prevented the tank from bogging down in mud. The W indicated wet stowage, where ammunition was surrounded by a water and glycerin jacket to prevent the brewing up explosions common in earlier models. While 2,617 were produced, they became the definitive version of the Sherman, serving through the Korean War. Another notable variant was the Sherman Firefly. Although a British modification, it is often discussed alongside U.S. armor. The British fitted the massive 17-pounder anti-tank gun into the Sherman turret. To fit the gun and its large shells, they had to remove the bow gunner, reducing the crew to 4 men. While a vital tool for the Allies in defeating heavy Tigers and Panthers, the Firefly remained almost exclusively in British and Commonwealth service. Outro. From the wood-wheeled M1917 to the high-tech M1 Abrams, American tanks have transformed from simple steel boxes into the most powerful vehicles on the planet. If you enjoyed this journey through armored history, hit the like and subscribe buttons to stay tuned for more, and tell us in the comments which tank is your favorite.